Okay, Dan, fire away when you're ready. Wait, I'm not hearing you, Dan.
Okay, first question.
Yeah.
How do you actually ponder the meaning of a koan? I know that during zazen, you're only supposed to repeat the sound like a mantra without thinking of its meaning. So do you think of the meaning during samu or something like that?
Oh, interesting question. Thanks. I mean, certainly you can bring a koan to mind, at any point you like, for sure. Um, Sitting, meditating is an optimal time to do it because you're less likely to be having your attention drawn in other directions. But I don't know about this, the meaning of a koan. It's somehow doesn't seem quite right. It's not really quite about meaning. The level of switch, of shift that a koan can bring about is not on the conceptual level where meaning is found. It's in other words, if you want to call it the meaning of the koan is accomplished by a real shift in how we experience this very moment. So sometimes, for sure, our conceptual apparatus is going to wrap itself around a koan and try to solve it. But really, we want to. I mean, and that's that's not a problem if that happens. Is so fine, but it's not probably going to. It's not the direct route to what the koan has to offer, if you see what I mean. It's in other words, if we think we've got to in any way solve them, um, that's not actually right. I mean, I know it's really hard to get clear about this because it seems like there's obviously something that can happen with a koan. We keep hearing about that, and for sure it's true. But what can happen isn't a matter of solving the koan. It's more like the koan can initiate or activate a kind of release where what we had thought our sort of primary agendas in life were, they sort of drop. I mean, sorry, that might sound scary. Like, it doesn't mean that you're going to lose your job or anything. It's more that just the sense of having to figure things out, including the koan, drops away, and our experience of this very moment can undergo a shift. Okay, so really not quite about meaning, but yes, by all means, you pick it up whenever you like. And yeah, it's true that the early koans, we do use them somewhat mantra like mu especially. It's like just kind of repeating it on the exhale typically is the advice. And the same might be true of a couple of other early ones. As we go on through the koans, it's a little different. It's more like sort of bringing it to mind and then kind of forgetting about it. But with mu, I think that's probably not quite such helpful advice. Let it come fairly regularly, and don't fret it if you go off in trains of thought. That's perfectly natural. It's what we expect. Every time we realize we're glad we're glad we've returned, and then when you're ready, you pick up mu again. Okay, I think maybe that's enough for that for now, Dan. Let's try the next, please.
Okay. This question is about lay Zen practice. Both Valerie and Henry speak of this, and I suspect that I'm not alone on this question given all the references to Sam Harris and the Waking Up app. Many seekers, I believe, come to you by way of this journey, having patched together a meditative path and being aided by COVID, giving us a cave experience, the perfect excuse to get off the gerbil wheel of life and letting many of us deepen a Dharma wheel experience. More time for meditation, YouTube lectures, podcasts, and Sam's interviews, which brought me to Henry's intervention to Zen, just sitting, having have been doing for a long time, and koan meditation. Months of who am I was the awakening to my own true heart, a lay contemplative attracted to the Zen path. Okay, the world is reopening. I do not want to get back to the gerbil whale. Henry wrote of a Scottish Zen teacher who also was a businessman. Please offer us some crumbs on how one lives this lay trail. I really fear a loss of what I have found in these last 15 months.
Okay, great. So it's just picking up on a couple of points there. It sounds like for you, this COVID period has been really an opportunity to deepen your practice. That's great. And it also sounds like you sat for several months with the question, "Who am I?" And something happened, some kind of shift, some kind of discovery. You awaken to your true heart. You put it. Lovely, lovely. And the concern is, like, as we go back to working non-remotely, how will you sustain, some of the new ways of experiencing that you've realized, something like that. I hope I got that about right. I mean, there are things you can do. You can punctuate your day with little reminders. Many you can read up on this kind of thing, but there are, every time you're about to sit down in a chair, just take a breath. Every time you're about to get up, take a breath. Every time you're reaching for the phone, stop, take a breath. Every time you're driving and there's a stop sign or a red light, breathe until the light changes or until you're free to go. And you can, I mean, you could not just breathe, but you could check, aware, aware, just, you know, allowing yourself a quick taste. Because I say quick, but actually, when we taste the kind of boundless heart of this moment, it's not quick because there's no time in it. Just having a quick hit of the timeless. It's great. It's always here. It can't not be. So, whatever you've realized, it can't not be here always. It can't. It's only that we can be distracted from it. And I mean, the great example that Valerie and I both sort of look to is the international abbot of Sambo Zen. Is a Japanese businessman who's still very busy. I mean, and actually very successful in his life as a businessman, leading a big company, and as really deeply awakened Zen master, leading maybe 80 Zen teachers in their practice. And he just cannot divide his Zen life from his lay life of business and family. He cannot make a separation between them. And I'm sure that's for lay practitioners, we could all, I mean, imagine many of us could sign on for that. It's like, well, that's kind of what I want. If I, to whatever extent I taste samadhi, to whatever extent an awakening befalls me and opens up my world, I want that to be, or opens up my heart. I want that to be where I live throughout my day, or something like that. And that's a great aspiration. And, honestly, that's what this path of practice is about. And so then the question is, how patient can I be? Because Rome wasn't built in a day. So this is a lifetime of habits of getting caught up in the thought processes and the feelings they generate, which generate more thoughts. A lifetime of being on that gerbil wheel of that. But actually, you can go through the very same motions and be in this boundless awakeness. You can. It doesn't require that old style of thinking, it and being. It doesn't require it. It's amazing what we can accomplish with less self, and more freedom. It can be so much just sort of happens, and it's one of the wonders of Zen, I think. um I mean, all practices have their strengths, but one maybe of Zen's is that it really has, throughout its history, it's favored work as an element of practice. So the monastics back in 7th century, 8th century China worked. They weren't like other monastics who had the laity support them. In Zen, there was a sort of, or Chan, which is the Chinese form of the word, there was always I suppose, a kind of ethic that monastics work. Now, that meant, yeah, for sure, less time on the cushion, perhaps, but it also meant more exposure to how do you maintain great, ever deepening clarity in the midst of activity. That's in the genes of Zen. So I think it's a matter of patience, that you can't switch this on and have it perfectly. I don't think that's a likely. It's not. I mean, maybe some can, but it's extremely rare, and probably they would be encouraged to carry on practicing anyway. So yeah, this is what we're building up through our. It's so cool, really, that this practice can actually precisely target that very question. But it takes time, like many good things, So patience on the way. The moment we're patient about it, of course, is all right, because patience lets things be the way they are, including the time we need to grow in practice. Okay, Dan, let's take another, please.
Okay. This question was answered later on in the chat by Johanna. However, I'll read it for the benefit of all those that might not have read the whole chat. I noticed that there are recordings of the Dharma talks as well as the Q&As. Are these available? How, when, and where?
Oh, well, I hope I don't. I mean, what did Johanna say? Did
I think on YouTube.
Yeah, right. There's Mountain Cloud as a YouTube channel. That's probably the easiest way. Yeah.
Okay, next question. I had a question about the paradox of appreciating the words most intimate and also vast and clear as important to my spiritual life. I wanted to ask, how can we reconcile both of these seemingly contradictory ways of being? But then, when Henry spoke about giving up the need to know, I found the answer when he said, "This very moment becomes vast and clear." I saw the intimacy I crave and the openness of the vast space I seek as well. What a wonderful Teisho. Thank you so much. I'm grateful for these teachings in the Sangha. So I guess it's a statement.
I don't think there's a question there. Yeah, you got it. I mean, that's it. Right here now is where it's utterly intimate and utterly boundless. And when you get a shift and that shows itself, there it is. Here it is. Here it is. That's why, do you see that other question about the meaning of a koan? Like if you were thinking about the meaning of most intimate and the meaning of vast and clear, you think, well, they mean different things. They seem to, but they're pointing to an experience. They're actually both pointing to one amazing experience that's a shift from our ordinary way of experiencing this very moment. Nice. Thank you for that teaching.
Okay. A question about the session, my second session, and my first at Mountain Cloud. Days 1 and 2 were wonderful. Days 3 and 4 difficult. No particular emotional baggage surfacing or anything like that, but a general feeling of dissatisfaction and irritability. Annoyance with sitting, practice, irritability with family members, and then sitting again straight after the Dharma talk, and the experience is just lovely. Just being here and being quiet, befuddling. I do not understand where this turbulence is coming from. I can't pin it on anything in particular. Do you have any insights?
Well, I can offer something, I think, here, and let's just see if it helps. Which is, I wouldn't try to study the etiology of it. I would want to know it in my body. That's what I always do in practice. Is like, if there's, it sounds, I don't know whether the word restlessness is quite right, actually, but it might be a little bit like restlessness. But anyway, whether it's irritability, annoyance, dissatisfaction, find it in your body. That's the formula. It may not answer everything, but it's a pretty good starting place for most issues that come up in practice. You should be finding, I mean, we'd hope that you'd be finding something uncomfortable in your chest or your solar plexus, maybe your belly, but 95% of the time it's chest and solar plexus. And so the place that, it's the thing you don't want to feel, when, because you got this irritability, annoyance, dissatisfaction, whatever, yuck, okay. So then you want to do other things so that you don't have to feel that. But sitting says you can't. You're stuck on your cushion, and you gotta sort of somehow encompass this, and you don't want to. So thoughts come up, because thoughts are some kind of distraction, but often they're not very comfortable thoughts. They may even aggravate the discomfort. This gets kind of worse and worse. But you see, the solution is to not uh, pull away from it, is to turn and face it. So then we start thinking, okay, well, Henry says, look in your body. I mean, Henry and 10,000 other teachers say, look in your body. So you start looking in your body. I can't find anything. No, it's nothing. No, it's just blank. It's hiding. Okay. It's hiding. It doesn't want to be outed. It wants you to keep feeling irritable. The irritability has its own agenda of keeping you feeling irritable. So you've got to actually find it. So you scan carefully through the chest, soften a bit, slow down, and then, oh yeah, oh, that's yucky. There's some unpleasant thing somewhere in there. I mean, this is how it might go. Okay, I'm just sort of, and then so you find that. Okay, now you're on the right track. You're getting to um, the non-story based manifestation of an emotion, and then you just sit with it. You recognize it. You let it be there. You can use that famous and justly famous acronym RAIN. Very good for this kind of thing. Recognize, allow, investigate, nurture. RAIN. It's much talked about, and it's very good, really, as a sort of as a template for approaching this kind of thing. So you recognize, oh yeah, oh, there it is. It's really nasty. It's in my lower chest or whatever. Oh, it's not that nasty. It's just uncomfortable. You allow it, you accept it, and maybe allowing is a little challenge at first, but accept. Okay, this is showing up. I don't know what it is, but it's showing up. Investigate. That could mean, let me see if I can locate it a bit more precisely. Let me get a sense of its dimensions. How big is it? How small is it? Is it static? Is it dynamic, moving? Is it, and what kind of quality of feeling is it? Is it like a tightness or a tingling or a bubbling or a solidity, a density? What is it? So you start to know what it is better, and then nurture. That means sort of pour on the love, basically. Open up, soften, accept, allow, let it be here. Love it, and love yourself having this discomfort, and um, and see what happens. But the allowing part or the accepting part is critical, because at that point we are reducing our aversion to it, our resistance to it. Okay, and then it's just a matter of practice. It's not magic. But over time, it sort of gets easier. Oh, this again. Rather than setting up a great big squabble with it, it's just, okay, I know this. I let it be. I'm soft around it. I give it space. And this is a really useful thing to develop, actually, because there's going to be, no matter how profound our practice, times will come in life when something very troubling happens and we'll be knocked back. And to have a method to help us at those times and not be saying, sort of, damn, I'm a better practitioner than this. I shouldn't be feeling this way or something. Not at all. We should be expecting that if we have a grievous loss, if a near and dear person to us is going through a very difficult time, we're going to feel it. And that lovely teacher Chula Dasa, he has this sort of series of stages of practice from 1 to 9, and you gradually work your way up. Well, some look at it that way, and it's plausible for sure. But he says, if you have a divorce, if you have a grievous loss, if a really difficult job loss, career loss, or something, and you're on the 7 or 8 level, you'll be a 2 or a 3 right after that, and that's okay. Your practice needs will change, and it's okay. Okay, let's go to the next one, please, Dan.
Could you talk about I don't know as a subjective personal meditation experience and I don't know as it may be brought into the shared social experience? I'm thinking along the lines not knowing is most intimate is so deep and so beautiful. And the shadow side of it can be that not knowing is most lonely.
I wonder whether that is a different meaning of not knowing that would be lonely. Said in the social sphere. Does that mean like not knowing other people or something? I don't know, because this is I'm not sure I'm tuning into this question. I mean, the point of the not knowing is the idea is like, think of it as like releasing assumptions, releasing opinions, not holding opinions so tightly, not holding assumptions and preconceptions so tightly, letting meditation be a space in which some of our holding onto these things can release. So that's a journey into freedom, and it's beautiful, and it actually brings us closer to the fabric of this moment, the experience of this moment. So there's nothing lonely there. So now, what's this question about in the social sphere? Would that mean like I don't know who other people are or something like that, and letting go of my sense of what other people are? But even then, that can be a fantastic way to greater intimacy, to meet people who we may have known a long time as if we don't know them. I mean, in other words, as if for the first time, as if we don't, not as if, without having an agenda about who they are, what our relationship with them is, what their habits are, things we like and don't like about them, to have none of that, but just meet now. I mean, that's a journey to greater intimacy with others. I mean, some might say, unless we're less sure of who people are, we can't really meet them so intimately. In other words, the less I'm sure about of my picture and ideas about who somebody is, the less sure I am of that, the more chance there is of a real closer meeting, a more intimate meeting. I mean, I think it's positive in the social sphere as well, in the interactive sphere. And in Zen, in a way, in the process of meeting in Dokusan, we're going more and more into both meeting in a space of not knowing, in an open space that's not filled in by opinions and judgments and expectations, that's free of them. I mean, to me that seems fantastic and to be wished for. wonder if I'm missing something in this question, where the loneliness is coming from. Yeah, I mean, I wonder if it was something about the koan. It can seem quite a bleak koan, oddly, that Bodhidharma one. I once talked about it at Esalen, actually, and at the end, somebody said to me, sort of something along the lines of, yeah, it's just like I thought Zen was. And I said, well, what did you mean? He said, stark and, what was the other word? Stark and insistent. Is what she said. I thought, oh my God, I really haven't done a good job here, And because, I mean, in fact, Zen is rich and warm-hearted, and it is supposed to be not insistent but opinion free. So somehow I'd given a very poor impression. I really let the side down then, and I thought, well, I'm going to try not to do that again. And I don't know if I've succeeded at all, but it isn't how I experienced Zen. But this koan, I can see why it could seem stark, because he says it's all empty and you're nobody. If you took it just like that, again on the level of meaning, it might seem chilly, but it's actually pointing us to our own experience, in which to find that this very moment is boundlessly clear is an amazing thing, and it makes everything 1,000 infinitely times more beautiful, strangely. And it makes us, that not knowing makes us much closer to one another. So anyway, I don't know if that's a guess that the question came out of that. As I thought Valerie's talk on it was just magnificent, actually, really creating the world of the koan. I hope everybody felt that. It was like the world of the koan spreading through Zoom, Is when I felt that room where Bodhidharma and the emperor are meeting was just, which is this boundless openness, was just kind of, yeah, just spreading wide through the wall-less Zoom room. Yeah. Thank you again, Valerie. Okay. What's next, Dan?
Okay, I have kind of a statement again, but I think you might want to comment on it. Thank you, Valerie, and thank you, Henry, both of you, for your high tolerance for truth and beauty, as well as your deeply thoughtful responses. During Valerie's talk this AM, I was reminded of my impatient question yesterday, why Zen, and my own answer to that moment was to taste freedom. I'm particularly grateful in these 4 days for what seemed to be a daily dose of neutralizing the shroud of negative judgment around internal speaking and seeing. And special thanks to Henry for yesterday's microdose transmission of non-dual out of the back door escape hatch. 'Twas not lost on me. Most grateful to both of you.
Oh, it's gratitude right back. By the way, I just want to remind us of this little dude. I mean, talking about the sort of stark and insistent thing. Look at his eyes. I mean, he's not necessarily I mean, this is a Japanese rendering of Dharma, Bodhi, Dharma, awakening reality. What do we call it? Dharma, law of causation, fact. Yeah, he's he's very nice though, he just wants to free us all. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, next question. If one of the goals of practice is to do no harm and liberate all beings, can you speak to whether or not it's ethical to have children, and also how to grapple with the inherent contradiction between liberating all beings and the fact that most of us living in the wealthy countries are causing vast harm, whether we want to or not, driving our cars, flying planes, buying plastic wrap, etc. Basically, it's just existing as a human in the way we all do destroy all beings, not liberating them. Example, the mass extinctions happening in the animal world because of human activity, pollution, the loss of old growth forest, ocean full of microplastics. Is there Zen wisdom for this? How can we reconcile wanting to liberate all beings with the fact that our existence is causing immense harm?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thank you for this important question. I mean, actually, Buddhism has been grappling with this from the beginning because it recognized that all life depends on consuming other life. I mean, a cabbage and a carrot, they've got some kind of wish to grow that we interrupt. And when we do more than interrupt, we destroy it when we eat, even if we're vegetarian. And of course, if we're not vegetarian, our very life is sustained by taking life. So, what to do about that? And I mean, this without getting, we can come up to the Anthropocene as well, of course, which we must do. But if you look at, I mean, in Tibet, the Buddhists aren't vegetarian because there isn't enough plants, not enough plants can grow at 14, 15, 16,000 feet. So they have to eat meat as well. How do you reconcile that? And there is no, um, it's not so much, I think, an answer as a sort of coming to terms with. And in, of course, Jainism, was an early Indian religion that developed, I guess, a little bit after Shakyamuni. I think I can't remember now. Actually, maybe around the same time. And their solution, so to speak, was to eat only fruits and seeds and nuts, which were um, not actually taking a life. I mean, they're sort of taking a potential life, but they felt that was less destructive than actually killing living plants. Um, so, how to be sustained with with less harm? How can we do it? And now, absolutely, you look at the Anthropocene. The last 150 years that's so rapidly accelerating in its effects, mass extinctions, and we're careening towards tipping points, and climate change, and appalling failure of governments, and somehow of us to, I don't know what, to actually galvanize the kind of change, of course, that's so urgently needed. How can we wish well for all beings and yet in our daily life be causing harm to so many beings? I mean, I think we could certainly argue for some practical steps that each of us can make in our reduction of waste and of fossil fuel use. We can drive less, we can take public transport where possible, we can recycle plastics, don't buy single use plastics if you can possibly avoid it, and so on. Um, but whatever we do, there is this conundrum at the heart of life that it seems to feed on life. How do we justify that? I mean, the one thing is that this infinite universe has created life. It has produced life. It's happening. It's happening by itself, or by whatever forces there are that made the proteins combine and create replicators and DNA and all the rest of it, and phenotypes, and and here we are, and we're able to. I mean, maybe it's some kind of moral step that at least we're able to see um, how life depends on life or something that previously for all those millions of years, if you go back, I don't know what it would be, 100 million generations, your great grandmother or great 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 100 million times grandmother was a fish. She might have been a voracious mega shark of the deep or whatever, and she ate, and she ate other living things, and my great 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 50 million times granddad was some, what are they called, pterosaur or something, and he ate mindlessly, ate other living things, and now here we are, and we're actually we're at least able to be aware of it. We're able to undertake a practice like this, which seeks to tame, where we personally seek to tame our own destructive impulses. We seek to do that. That is some kind of positive step. And the fact that we're facing a entirely new kind of crisis of human generated destruction. I don't think that means, I mean, we're in the midst of a big problem, and we're recognizing it, and some, old folks who really ought to have stayed in the dinosaur age have seized the reins of power in places and refused to recognize it, and that's deeply, deeply regrettable. But the fact is, broadly, we're becoming more aware of it, recognizing somehow we need to do something, and to cultivate in our hearts a warm wish towards the well-being of other beings cannot be a bad thing. To say, I wish all beings be well and free and safe, and to mean it more and more, I mean, that is better than saying, I don't give a damn, give me as much oil as I want. It's better to have a compassionate heart about the situation. Is it enough? No. I mean, we somehow have to do all we can, each of us and collectively. And that's lots of little things, and it's bigger things, and probably. And we also have to grapple with the fact that even our efforts may not be enough, and make them anyway. I don't know, Valerie, do you want to speak to this at all? Please do if you want.
I think you're doing a wonderful job, Henry. Really, just was taking notes. So eloquent. I think when I read the question, this is implied throughout what you're saying, but this brokenheartedness that Zen disposes us to, just this practice, and how this is not to be turned away from, but really the only way through in is to let our hearts break all the way into that space that you're describing, that includes all the destruction and all the cries of the world. This my body, and that to me matters in all the ways that you're saying, and in a way that cannot be measured. It's not in any way an out. It's just a fact. This great compassion. And I think it matters.
Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, Valerie. That's beautiful, beautiful. Oh, yes, so reminding us there is a bigger perspective as well, and it doesn't in any way diminish the need for compassionate action, but it is also a larger perspective in which everything's unfolding, and somehow, I mean, again, not at all to absolve any need for action, but to do it even in the context of recognizing that there is a greater compassion holding everything is actually better than not knowing that greater compassion. More wise, likely to be wiser, but not replacing the need, for effective action the best we can. Thank you. Yeah. Wow. Hey, Dan, how are we doing for numbers of questions? I'm just glancing at the time. Okay.
It looks like 4, but one is real quick. The next one, I think you
Okay.
can just answer it, and then the other, there might be one more statement. So go 2, 3 more.
Okay, let's see how we go.
What is suggested donation for Donna, for Henry, and Valerie for a retreat?
There is none. It's entirely as all the way from, the beauty of your participation to whatever. There's just there's no. I'm sorry, there's no answer to that. But you've already given Dana by being here, so don't worry. I mean, Mountain Cloud, however, Mountain Cloud it is hard for Mountain Cloud these days, and it will be immensely grateful for any support. Okay, next one.
I've been on a break from someone very dear to me, my best friend. It was actually through sitting the last retreat that I realized the only way to proceed was to pause. Do you have any advice for working with a lot of emotional pain? I'm feeling abandoned and betrayed by him, and I feel a lot of grief and anger. I'm trying to let go. I find myself consumed with whether or not he will be deserving of forgiveness once the break is over. Anything you have to say about this situation will be helpful.
Yeah, so I'm just hesitating. Yeah. Well, I think some of the. Okay, actually, I have one clear answer. That there is. The way forward always is forgiveness, and how you get there. That's for you to determine. But no doubt, and you may well need to do some, put up some boundaries. If that's needed, that's needed. If somehow the boundaries have been unclear in the relationship or something, and they need to be affirmed by you, then good. That's good. And somehow the right, end point in all relationships is always that have had issues and problems and been damaged or whatever in some way, compromised in some way. There's only one right endpoint, and it's forgiveness. I'm sure that's true, even in massively, catastrophically betrayed and destroyed relationships between peoples. Even look at the Dalai Lama with the Chinese. His whole nation lost and betrayed and savagely treated, and he still forgives the Chinese. He never stops forgiving them. And what an incredible thing, what a thing to carry. And what a way to respond to it, with forgiveness and compassion. And I mean, you know, we in some way, of course, we're not all the Dalai Lama, you know, and you know, what a situation for a person to be in. But it's a beautiful example. And now but you know, but it's important that doesn't deny the need for boundaries. You know, the boundaries. And we talk about boundless, but actually boundaries for the healthy self are really important. Being able to claim your own boundaries, they make a good relationship. And so I don't know why I'm harping on about boundaries. It may not be the issue, but it might be. So anyway, finding your way to forgiveness is the right way. In terms of your sitting when difficult emotions come up, I think do all the things we've been talking about. You know, find it in your body, be compassionate, and so on. Valerie, do you want to add anything? Wait, I think you're muted.
I'm so sorry. I was responding to somebody's question on chat that was much more just about logistics. Forgiveness, find it in your body. Yeah, I just the only thing I might add is, as you said the word, I saw it as for, like FORE, given. You know, there is in even the most egregious, difficult experiences between people and peoples, and there is this wholeness. So yeah, I think it takes it. That's not to say, oh, it's already done, except in some level, it is. And then we take our time and we do the healing and the work, and with accountability all around, and you know, in the healthiest possible ways, maybe exploring those even, you know, beyond. You may have said this, not just on the cushion. There are other kinds of tools for exploring really complicated relationships that can be so helpful. But what happens on the cushion, you know, it's coming home to this wholeness that's there from the start. And that comes up for me now when I hear the word. It's just another nuance to the word forgiven. But that's not really adding anything. I just appreciate so much your response and the question. And you know, the word courage that you brought up, I think during our last retreat, and I recently read a couple of the Teisho by Yamada Kon Roshi that are readily available on the Sambo Zen website to anyone who's a member. That's a very nice resource. He, especially in retreat, talks about courage. And, you know, this is a matter of the heart, as Henry has said. The courage to be really naked and honest with yourself first. And of course, then in these right relationships with others, our living relationships. Compassion goes hand in hand with courage. He sees.
Thank you so much, Valerie. I think you added a whole lot there. It's fantastic, deepening, beautiful. Thank you. I've actually got a little idea, which is that I was recently sent a book by a sort of a new friend, a guy called Stephen Snyder, who's I mentioned actually in one of the retreats, I now realize. And he has a forgiveness meditation in the book. And maybe I'll lead us in it in our last sit. Just a few minutes of it as we go into our sit. So I think Dan, I think we'll wind it up there.